Welcome to the Hangout for e-commerce, where we'll be discussing basically conversion and optimization tips for e-commerce publishers. Before I start, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Antao, and I'm part of the e-commerce team. I'm here talking to you with
Hector. I'm Hector, and I'm also part from the e-commerce team.
And basically, we'll be covering different topics around how to optimize, as I said, your conversion and hopefully drive them through this holiday period. And also, we'll address, obviously, AdSense and what we call an optimized advertising business model. So before we start, I'm just going to put the presentation up. Let's see. So I hope everyone can see the presentation now. So during this hangout, and we'll try to keep it for an hour, we'll basically, this is the agenda, we'll basically cover two main points. The first one will address optimizing your conversion through two different separate units. One, be user-friendly, and two, capture the mobile opportunity. Later on, we'll address how to improve your profitability of your main business model through advertising. So without any delay, let's jump into optimizing your conversion. Now, when we talk about best practices for e-commerce, we're basically addressing user behavior on e-commerce sites, because that's where you want to focus on. You want to convert your browsers and your incoming users into shoppers. And we know it can be difficult for publishers to identify where to focus on first. So this simple matrix should give you an overview on what are your key pages on your site. For example, if I take the FAQ page on top left, we basically categorize that that page as having high traffic but low in terms of in-person to conversion. So if you address that matrix to your website, you could specify and do a hierarchy between your different pages and know where to focus on first. Let's start with the be user-friendly. Now, when your incoming traffic arrives to your site, you want to make sure you bring the user to the right page. And that basically can be translated into three different points, which is, first, you want to make sure you link your ads, for example, your Google ads, to the right page so the user is not surprised when they land on your website. You also might want to mirror the ad title to your landing page, so there is a consistency between the two messages. Finally, you want to make sure your selling points are visible in your ads and on the page itself. When the user arrives to the site, it's also very important to make sure your homepage is useful and to help the user navigate. And to achieve that, you want to make sure that basically the page layout is optimum for the user, and that he will know where to find the different categories, the different buttons where he can go and basically go through the categories. Now, you see here on the left, there is an example of the Google Play layout, where you can visibly see the categories where the users can go. It's also about giving information on the product details I need as a shopper. If I'm interested in a Samsung Chromebook, the information that I need are basically the key selling points of that product, but also the price and maybe the shipping costs. Through the registration process, you might want to make sure you ask as less information as you can from the user. You want to make the registration optional if you can. Basically, the aim here is to ease the buying process and to make sure that the user has the less amount of steps to cover in order to buy from your website. Here you get an example on the Google Wallet how easy we try to make it for our users to buy. We basically put some ideas in place, like the shipping cost, if the product is in stock or not, how long the shipping will take, and also we make sure we put everything as transparent as we can. The refund policy is clearly visible from the page. All those steps will help the user to trust your site, to trust your shipping process, and to basically convert. Finally, we have a tool, and I hope you heard about it. It's the page speed tools. The idea is that you want to make sure the latency of your site is correct and as fast as possible. For example, we'll give you an example. Amazon has calculated that a page slowdown of just 1 second could lead to a loss of $1.6 billion in sales each year. That's how important the latency of the page is. So we've just launched the page speed insight. You'll find the URL on this slide, where you will get insight and also key recommendations to make sure your website loads as fast as possible. To continue, we'll address mobile and how to go mobile.
Thank you, Antao. So, as you know, mobile is super important. You've been hearing a lot during the past years, and every year you may have heard as well, this is the mobile year, this is the mobile year. And it's super important that you guys all know how to go mobile, and we want to give you some tips on how could you optimize the user experience from a user coming to your site with a mobile device. Just to give you a few numbers, I'm not going to explain, I'm not going to be taking a lot of time in here, but just so that you know, $159 billion are estimated to be influenced by the mobile devices in 2012. This is what Deloitte reached out. But however, out of this, 80% of the customers who haven't done a mobile site, it's because they have a bad user experience, right? So you don't want to be this guy who is losing a customer. So what we want to give you today is a few tips on how to optimize the website. Before we start with that as well, a little bit more of stats. We are all connected nowadays, right? And Generation C, which is connected generation, 91% of them are sleeping next to a smartphone. They may use it for an alarm clock or they may use it for whatever, but in the morning, one of the first things they do is they check out the smartphone, and before going to sleep, one of the last things we do as well is checking the smartphone, right? So we've said that smartphones are very important, okay? So the question here is, how can you use the tools we have in order to create a better user experience? So in here, we're telling you, if you have Google Analytics, you should use it in order to prioritize the content that you're going to be showing up in your website. If you're already monetizing with AdSense, you can go into the AdSense front end and check out the platform traffic, and you'll be able to see what is the percentage of your impressions who are being mobile, tablet, and desktop. Okay, but the main point here is use Google Analytics to be able to understand what your user does in the website, and after that, you'll be able to provide a much better user experience. To keep on giving you a little bit of more numbers, it's very important that you guys provide the information that this user is looking for in the website, right? So, to let you know, 74% of the users are coming to a website just to get directions or operating hours. 64% are just coming just to look for your contact details. Let's call it mobile phone, fixed phone, address, etc. 61% of them just come to find product information, and 50% of them make a purchase or order a service. So you kind of want to focus in that as well, but you should be able to provide all of these that they are looking for in your website. Now, I'm going to give you 9 tips to make sure your site looks good on small screens, okay? The first one, and very important, is keep it quick. As Antao said, we have the page speed service, so you can use it to improve your page load. Okay, but keep it quick. And when we say keep it quick, we like to say prioritize the content and features that users need most, reduce large books of text, and use bullet points for easy reading, and compress images to keep them small for faster site loading. Okay, that everything of that would apply to the first point, which is keeping it quick. Okay, The second point, also very important, is simplifying navigation. You guys have to know that you cannot expose the same information to a user on a desktop and to the same user on a mobile phone, because the way they use the device is totally different, it's changing, and the environment where they are using it is also changing, right? So you may want to simplify that navigation for the user when in a mobile phone. So how to do that? We're going to give you 3 more tips as well. Minimize scrolling and keep it vertical only. Never keep horizontal scrolling. It will make the user experience better. Use 7 links or fewer per page navigation. Don't use too many links. If not, you're going to overload with information. And have a search box that can be stated very quick if you have a lot of information on the website. To keep on following, the third example would be to be thumb-friendly. And we're kind of starting to get used to be able to interact much more with the devices, but still sometimes it's difficult, right, to click on the right link or to click on the right button. So you should be able to use large center buttons and give them breathing room to reduce accidental clicks. You should also pad smaller buttons to increase the clickable area, and pad checkboxes by making them clickable. Fourth point would be designing for visibility. You want to have visibility on the side. You want user to be able to recognize what you really want to guide them through, right? So how to make that? Create contrast between background and text. This is very important, because if not, the user will be like kind of tracking in the site. Also, make sure the content fits on screen and can be read without pinching and zooming. The zooming thing is very important, because every time the user is zooming, is getting lost off the center, right? So you don't wanna make the user be like zooming and not zooming a lot. And the last point would be use size and color to indicate link and button priority. Moving on to the 5th point is make it accessible. How can you actually your mobile site should be able to work across all mobile devices and all handset orientations. Just think about finding an alternative to Flash if necessary, as it doesn't work on some devices, right? So 3 more points for you to know here. Try HTML5 for interactivity and animation. Adapt your site for both vertical and horizontal orientations. Keep users in the same place when they change orientation. That's super important. Moving on to the 6th point, and very important to you guys, especially if you're selling something on the web, is make it easy to convert, okay? That should be one of your main goals in terms of profitability, okay? So I'm gonna give you 4 points on how to make it easy to convert for the user. The first one is focus on information that will aid conversion, okay? In case of, let's say, product details or any kind of details that may help your conversion go through. Second bullet point, reduce the number of steps needed to complete a transaction. That's super important. You cannot, if you can, you should be able to shorten the conversion funnel in mobile, because you cannot expect a user being able to spend so much time on mobile than on a desktop. Also, keep forms very short and use the fewer number of fields possible, because the user doesn't have enough time to be there filling so much information. Probably is on the street, or probably is waiting on the bus, or maybe it's in a cafeteria, and it's not the main activity. So keep it short. The last point that I'd like to recall is use click-to-call functionality for all the phone numbers. That's important, because just as it says, it's click to call, so the user to call you will only have to click in there, and then it will be calling you directly, okay? If we move to the 7th point, make it seamless, make a unified experience between your mobile site and your desktop site. So how can you make it happen, right? So allow users to save popular searches on shopping cart and content, right? So when they log on mobile, they are able to see what they were saving on desktop. Maintain key features on the site across all channels as much as possible, and display the same information for products and services. Don't try to change the information you display on mobile and you display on desktop, because if not, the user is going to be lost. What you want is to have the same experience across all devices. Call it a tablet, call it a mobile, or call it desktop. The 8th point would be mobile site redirects. This is also very important. At first, you should be redirecting every user to a mobile site, because it's a better experience for them, and you'll probably engage them longer, have less bounce rates, and keep them coming back many more times, right? So give users a choice to go back to the desktop site, but don't make it easy to return to that desktop site. Okay. The second would be let users choose which version they prefer for later visits. Okay, and also include key information such as your address or a store locator or on the redirect page. But it's very important that you guys redirect because you'll be increasing the user experience. And the last point, which is very common sense, is basically listen, learn, and iterate. Listen to your user, see what they do on the site. As we said before, you can use Google Analytics to be able to understand what your users do on your site, how many time do they spend on the site, and what is the content that they are looking for. So by seeing in there, you can actually prioritize the content that you want to push on a mobile site. Last but not least, regarding tablets, we're just going to give you three main examples, but three main key recommendations. But enable touch-specific formats, such as, for example, slideshows that a user can swipe, because the experience that they will be having with a tablet is not going to be the same as the one in mobile, and also the environment where they are going to be using the tablet is not going to be the same one as in mobile. Also, align the resolution of the page and its fonts to the smaller screen sizes. Okay, it has to be legible for other kind of sizes. And as I said before, please try not to add horizontal scrolling because the user gets lost. This may be too technical, but in case you have the resources, try to go for a responsive design site, because you will be able to adapt to the fragmentation of the screens. So with responsive design, you'll be able to serve the content in different ways based on the screen resolution. Now that we've been giving you some tips on how to improve your on-site conversions, well, we want to start talking a little bit on how could you improve your overall profitability through advertising.
Now, we've been talking about the user and how he converts on your website, how he behaves and interacts with the different items on your website. Do we believe that the question at the end of the day for an e-commerce publisher is who is the shopper? If we look at the average online, we see that only 1% to 5% of e-commerce traffic will convert into a sale, depending on how well that website is actually behaving. The idea is that you can potentially, for those who are not using AdSense, create a new revenue source from those users who are not considered shoppers, who are considered browsers, who come to your website, scroll to your items, maybe add items to the shopping cart, but never convert into a sale. The overall objective is obviously to increase your profitability per user. You will then have a new business model where the revenue per user is made of one, organic sales, and that is the product or services that you're actually selling, and the display ads. When we talk about that advertising business model, we have a way at Google to layer that business model into 3 levels. House ads, which are basically ads that belong to you, that push for certain actions you want from your users, monetization, like AdSense, and direct sales. And those 3 levels are made possible through one of our solutions, which is called DoubleClick for Publishers. You can find more information going to the URL google.com/DFP. Google DoubleClick for Publishers is basically an ad server. An ad server allows you to serve on a specific ad unit different ads coming from different sources. Let's go a bit into details in this. Now, the first level, if you remember the following slide, is what we call house ads. And basically, house ads are banner ads created by your team targeting your buyers or your non-buyers. You can specify that into DoubleClick for Publishers in order to communicate, for example, sales promotions, newsletter sign-up incentives. Let's take an example. Let's say that in December, you want to target all your users coming from Belgium with a specific banner that pushes them to sign up for your newsletter. Well, in DoubleClick, the only thing that you need to say or specify is, I want to target those users coming from Belgium from that day, from the 1st to the 31st. upload a banner that will be created by your team, and the ad will be shown to the relevant traffic. We believe that those house ads will enable you to push for conversion and basically to address your users and communicate with your users with specific and relevant messages. On the same ad unit, we would invite you to generate revenue through your non-buyers and browsers thanks to AdSense. The idea is that we will monetize your impressions by showing relevant ads to your users, and we will pay you per impression or per click. Now, a lot of you might be asking, well, but what about my competitors? What type of ads am I going to show on my ad unit on my site? Well, AdSense does have some features that would allow you to block your competitors, for example, per URL or per category. We'll basically make sure that the advertising we show on your site are relevant, number one, and two, never in contradiction with your primary business model, which is selling products or services. Also, you might be asking yourself, well, I'm investing so much time and money into acquiring traffic. I don't want my users to be distracted or just to leave my website for another advertiser URL. And that's why through DoubleClick for Publishers, you'll be able to activate ads in a new window. Basically, when a user clicks on an ad, the advertising itself or the landing page of that ad will open in a new window or a new tab. Finally, you want to have a strategy depending on the type of products, once again, that you sell or services, depending on the margin that you get from those products, to show or not advertising. We go back to the matrix, we go back to the buyer path. You want to understand which pages are key and essential in the conversion path on your website. Once you've identified the pages that will not impact on conversion, we will invite you to monetize those pages through AdSense. Finally, those are some integration example of display ads. Now you will see, for example, in the search results and browse pages, those are classic integration on our e-commerce publishers pages. For example, the 160 times 600 on the left-hand side, and the 728 times 90 on the top center. Now, why do we address search result and browse pages? Well, basically, once again, let's go back to the user behavior. If I'm scrolling through your product, I'm basically looking for information. You haven't invited me yet to buy something. I'm just looking for information, so that we believe that's where you can potentially show advertising and get good results from it. You can also address product detail pages, for example, with a 300 times 250 on the right-hand side, or, once again, a 728 times 90 on the top center. What we would like to underline here is that product detail pages can be key into the conversion path of the user. So you want to make sure that you're careful, for example, with some A/B testing and analytics, to make sure that conversion rate has no, well, basically doesn't decrease.
We normally recommend to start with an A/B testing, so basically splitting the traffic in two. Let's say 50% of the traffic who comes to this specific landing page or to the product detail page is going to be shown an ad, and 50% is not going to be shown an ad. And based on, let's say, 15 or 30 days of data, you'll be able to compare the site which was showing an ad and versus the site which wasn't showing any ad. And in there, you'll be able to compare bounce rate, time on site, page views per user, etc. So with this data, you'll be able to come along a conclusion. But the most important thing for you guys is to be able to drive conclusions with data, because without data, you cannot assume anything.
The objective and the overall goal is to build an advertising business model which will allow you to generate net revenue that will go potentially into new growth sources for you. Let's say, for example, you need to find a new revenue source to invest into providing free shipping for your users, or you just want to get a better ROI on your SEM investment. Well, there is a way, as Hector was saying, through data and through understanding the user behavior on the web, but also obviously on your pages, to generate that revenue through advertising without ever impacting on your conversion rate.
Totally. And one last thing to add. Think, guys, that with advertisement, if you can control it, and through A/B testing you'll be able to control it, it's basically net profits for you because it doesn't contain any cost of generating anything. So let's say when you're having a sale, it has implicit costs, right? So you have to pay a lot of things and stuff, but advertising is basically net profit for you. So at the end of the day, it's an extra account of money that comes at the end of the month, and it can be very, very, very relevant to you guys. So we encourage you to monetize your site.
We've run through the different slides that we had a bit in a hurry due to time constraints. This is a quick recap of the topics or the tips that we wanted to give you. You will find tomorrow a screenshot or one-sheeter of that slide, recovering basically the step that we'll address. And now we'll cover some Q&A with some of the users that are connected right now.
Yes, so please send us your questions. We'd like to hear your opinions. We'd like to hear your questions, and we'd like to help you as much as we can. Please take the advantage of this now because it doesn't happen every day. So please send your questions to us.
Now let's go to the first question. And the first question is, can you explain how DFP works in a little more detail? Sure. I'll take that question.
You take that.
Basically, DFP will allow you to serve ads, so through different sources, as I said. The first thing that you want to do is, in DFP, you basically specify the ad units that you have on your website. And once you've specified those ad units, you can say, or you could specify, where, for example, on that specific ad unit, 300 times 250, I want to show AdSense ads from Monday to Wednesday. And then you could specify, I also want to show a banner for one of my products from Thursday to Sunday. Basically, without having to change the code on your website itself, DFP will know when to show those different ads depending on what you're actually expecting.
Okay, we have another question which basically says, how easy is it to integrate AdSense display ads? What steps should I take? Okay, I'm going to take this one. It's pretty straightforward. So if you guys want to open an AdSense account, it's super easy. So you just type www.google.com/AdSense, and in there you'll be able to open an AdSense account. So you'll see that you have a form that you have to just add few information, and once that, the account has to be validated. Once it's validated, you're ready to run. Okay. So then, once you have the account open, what you should do, right? So it's super easy. What you have to do is basically you only create an ad. Okay. Once you create the ad, you take that code and you paste it on your website, and based on that, that's it. So just think, when you're creating the ad, you have a lot of functionality. So you can say, okay, I want a 728 times 90, I want a 300 times 250, or I want like several formats that are listed in there. So you choose your format, you choose your colors, you also choose if you want to show image ads or just text ads or a combination of both. And once it's created, as I said, you paste it on the website and you let it run. So at the end of the month, it will be generating revenues and it's going to be paying to you.